Trapezoids. A trapezoid is quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides. The parallel sides are called bases. The non-parallel sides are called legs. A trapezoid also has two pairs of base angles. An isosceles trapezoid is a trapezoid with congruent legs. The bases AB and CD are parallel. The legs BC and AD are congruent. Theorem: each pair of base angles of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. Given trapezoid ABCD, where AB is parallel to CD and BC is congruent to AD, prove that angle A is congruent to angle B and angle C is congruent to angle D. Here's a two-column proof puzzle. Given that AB is parallel to CD and segment BC is congruent to segment AD, prove that angle C is congruent to angle D. All right, so we begin with our given information. Then through points A and B, we draw lines that are perpendicular to DC. So that means that these angles here, APD, I'll draw these, this angle here and this angle here are right angles because that's the definition of perpendicular lines. All right, so then we know that ABQP here is a parallelogram because the opposite sides are parallel. We also know it's a rectangle because there's a right angle there, and any parallelogram with a right angle in it is also a rectangle. That's the definition of a parallelogram and the definition of a rectangle. All right, so then we know that AP here is congruent to BQ because the opposite sides of a rectangle are congruent to each other. Triangle APD is congruent to triangle BQC because of the hypotenuse leg theorem, since this hypotenuse is congruent with this hypotenuse and this leg is congruent to this leg. So then angle C is congruent to angle D because corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. All right, so given that AB is parallel to CD and BC is congruent to AD, prove that angle A is congruent to angle B and angle C is congruent to angle D. In the previous proof, that got us halfway there. We proved that angle C was congruent to angle D. Let's continue along using the fact that angle C is congruent to angle D to deduce that angle A is congruent to angle B.